The moment the security guard grabbed Malik's arm and tried to push him out of the lounge, the young man's exclusive membership card slipped from his pocket and seemed to hang in the air. In the next 10 seconds, an executive rushing over, the guard's face turning pale, nearby passengers whispering in shock. A domino effect began that would shake the entire airport chain and trigger a multi-million-dollar corporate reform project. Before the story starts, drop a comment. Which city are you watching from? And if you stand for justice and equality, share this story and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can make our voices stronger. Chicago O'Hare International Airport pulsed with the familiar chaos of Tuesday morning travelers rushing through Terminal 3. Malik Thompson navigated the crowd with practiced ease, his worn Stanford hoodie and scuffed Nike backpack marking him as just another young traveler in the sea of business suits and designer luggage. At 26, he learned that blending in was often easier than standing out, even when you had every right to stand out. He'd just closed a deal that would change his life and the lives of thousands of airport workers across North America. 3 days of negotiations in San Francisco had resulted in Skybridge Aviation signing a $200 million contract with his company, TechFlow Solutions, to revolutionize their customer service systems. The deal also came with something unexpected, a seat on Skybridge's board of directors, making Malik one of the youngest board members in the aviation industry. Now, with 2 hours before his flight to New York for the press announcement, Malik headed toward Gate 52 and the exclusive Skybridge Executive Lounge. His platinum membership card, the kind reserved for board members and top-tier executives, sat in his wallet alongside his driver's license and the boarding pass for Seat 2A in first class. The lounge entrance gleamed with polished steel and frosted glass, the Skybridge logo backlit in elegant blue. Through the glass doors, Malik could see leather armchairs, a full bar, and the kind of quiet luxury that made airport delays almost pleasant. He'd been looking forward to a decent meal and maybe answering a few emails in peace before the media circus began in New York. He approached the entrance, his hand reaching for his wallet, when a voice stopped him cold. "Excuse me, sir. I think you're looking for the regular gates. They're back that way." Malik turned to find a security guard blocking his path. The man's name tag read, Jason Miller, and his expression carried the kind of polite condescension that Malik had encountered too many times in his life, the assumption that his skin color disqualified him from certain spaces. "I'm heading into the lounge," Malik said evenly, keeping his voice neutral. He'd learned long ago that anger, no matter how justified, only made situations like this worse for people who looked like him. "This is the executive lounge, sir." Jason emphasized the word executive slightly. "It's for premium members only. The regular passenger lounges are in Terminal 2. Other travelers were starting to notice the interaction. A woman in a Chanel suit slowed her pace, watching. A businessman with a Rolex openly stared. 2 teenagers had their phones out, though Malik couldn't tell if they were texting or recording. "I understand," Malik replied, reaching for his wallet. "I have a membership." Jason's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, doubt mixed with stubbornness. "Sir, these memberships are very exclusive. They're not something you can just purchase online. If you have a regular Skybridge frequent flyer card, that won't grant you access here." The implication was clear. Someone who looked like Malik, dressed like Malik, couldn't possibly belong in the executive lounge. The assumption was so blatant that several nearby passengers stopped to watch the confrontation unfold. Malik kept his expression carefully neutral as he pulled out his wallet. Years of navigating predominantly white spaces, Stanford, Silicon Valley boardrooms, investor meetings, had taught him the cost of showing anger, even righteous anger. Black men didn't get the luxury of emotional responses without consequences. "I have the platinum membership," Malik said quietly, extending the distinctive black card with its holographic Skybridge logo. "As you can see, my name is on it. Malik Thompson." Jason barely glanced at the card. "Sir, these can be counterfeited. I'm going to need to verify this with my supervisor before I can let you enter." "Counterfeited," Malik repeated, his voice still calm but edged with steel. "You think I'm using a fake card to access an airport lounge?" "I'm just following protocol, sir," Jason replied, though his hand had moved to his radio. "Standard security procedure for unusual situations." The word unusual hung in the air like an accusation. What was unusual, Malik understood, wasn't his card or his boarding pass. What was unusual, in Jason's worldview, was a young black man in casual clothes claiming access to a space reserved for executives. The woman in Chanel had stopped completely now, her expression shifting from curiosity to discomfort as she recognized what was happening. The businessman with the Rolex shook his head and walked away, unwilling to get involved. But the teenagers definitely had their phones out now, cameras pointed at the confrontation. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," Malik said, his tone still professional. "And while we wait, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't touch me or block my path. I have a valid membership card and a first-class boarding pass. There's no reason for this delay." Jason's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. You're blocking the entrance for actual members." Actual members. The phrase was a slap, and Jason knew it. Several passengers gasped. The woman in Chanel pulled out her own phone. A college-aged girl whispered to her friend, "Oh my God, this is so racist." Malik felt the familiar burn of humiliation mixed with rage, the sensation he'd experienced countless times despite his achievements, his degrees, his success. It didn't matter that he'd sold his first company for $50 million at 23. It didn't matter that he'd been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. It didn't matter that he literally had a board seat with the company whose lounge Jason was guarding. To this security guard, Malik was just another suspicious black man who needed to be put in his place. But Malik had learned patience. He'd learned strategy. And he'd learned that the best response to prejudice wasn't always confrontation. Sometimes it was simply proving them wrong so thoroughly that the lesson couldn't be forgotten. "I'll wait for your supervisor," Malik said calmly, stepping slightly to the side so he wasn't blocking the entrance. He pulled out his phone and began typing, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. Jason spoke into his radio, his voice carrying clearly. "Yeah, I need a supervisor at the executive lounge entrance. Gate 52. We have a situation with someone attempting to use what appears to be fraudulent credentials." Fraudulent credentials? The accusation was now explicit. Malik continued typing on his phone, his expression serene. The teenagers were definitely recording. The woman in Chanel had positioned herself to capture the scene. Within minutes, Malik knew, this would be on social media. The question was whether it would be just another depressing example of everyday racism, or whether it would be something more. A lounge manager emerged from inside, a woman in her 50s named Patricia Green according to her name tag. She approached with the brisk efficiency of someone trained to handle difficult situations. "What seems to be the problem?" Patricia asked, her tone neutral as she looked between Jason and Malik. "This gentleman is attempting to access the executive lounge with a membership card that requires verification," Jason explained, his voice taking on a formal quality. "Given the exclusive nature of the lounge, I followed protocol by requesting supervisor approval before granting access." Patricia turned to Malik. "Sir, may I see your card and identification?" Malik handed over both his platinum card and driver's license without comment. Patricia examined them carefully, and Malik watched her expression shift from professional courtesy to confusion to something approaching alarm. "Mr. Thompson," she said slowly, her voice changing completely. "I apologize for the delay. Of course, you're welcome in the lounge. Jason, this is a valid platinum membership. You can return to your post." But Jason wasn't done. "Ma'am, with all due respect, these cards can be sophisticated forgeries. Without proper verification of his employment status or corporate credentials, I don't think we should." "Jason," Patricia cut him off, her voice sharp now. "Mr. Thompson's membership is valid. That's all you need to know. But ma'am, our security protocols clearly state." "Your security protocols," Malik interrupted quietly, his voice carrying authority that made both Patricia and Jason turn to him. are about to change significantly. He held up his phone, showing an email exchange with Skybridge's CEO, Rebecca Martinez, clearly visible. The subject line read, "Board meeting, new member introduction, Malik Thompson." Patricia's face went pale as she recognized the significance. Jason looked confused, still not understanding what was happening. "I'm joining Skybridge's board of directors," Malik said calmly. "The announcement goes public tomorrow in New York. I've spent the last 3 days finalizing a $200 million technology integration contract with your company. And right now, I'm standing in your airport, in front of paying customers and recording cameras, being accused of fraud by your security personnel." The words landed like bombs. Patricia looked like she might faint. Jason's expression cycled through disbelief, denial, and dawning horror as he understood the magnitude of his mistake. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry," Patricia stammered. "This is completely unacceptable." Jason didn't know. Didn't know what? Malik asked, his voice still calm but cutting. Didn't know that black people can be executives? Didn't know that you can't judge someone's credentials by their clothing or skin color? Didn't know that assumptions based on appearance violate every principle of professional conduct? He turned to Jason directly. "You didn't ask for my ID first. You didn't check my card properly. You immediately assumed I was trying to commit fraud, and when I showed you valid credentials, you doubled down instead of apologizing." "What?" Jason opened his mouth, but no words came out. The answer was obvious to everyone watching, and saying it out loud would only make things worse. "I know why," Malik continued. "And so does everyone recording this interaction right now. The question isn't why it happened. We all know why. The question is what happens next." Patricia was on her phone now, speaking rapidly to someone, probably the airport director or regional manager. Other employees had emerged from the lounge, attracted by the commotion. Regular passengers walked past, some stopping to watch, others hurrying away from the obvious confrontation. "Mr. Thompson, please," Patricia said desperately. "Let us make this right. Come inside, anything you want, completely complimentary. I'll personally ensure." "Making it right," Malik interrupted, "isn't about giving me free drinks. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to the next person who doesn't have a board seat and a $200 million contract to protect them." He pulled out his phone again, this time opening his email app. His fingers moved quickly across the screen as he composed a message to Rebecca Martinez, Skybridge's CEO, carbon copying the general counsel and head of human resources. "I'm documenting this incident in detail," Malik said. "Time-stamped, with witness accounts and video evidence. And I'm recommending immediate implementation of what I'm calling the blind check protocol, a complete overhaul of your security and access procedures to eliminate profiling and discrimination." Patricia nodded frantically. "Yes, absolutely. Whatever you recommend, we'll implement immediately. I'm also recommending comprehensive bias training for all customer-facing employees, third-party audits of discrimination complaints, and a passenger bill of rights that protects travelers from exactly this kind of treatment." Jason had backed away from the entrance, his face ashen as the reality of his career prospects sank in. The teenagers with their phones were whispering excitedly, already uploading the video to TikTok and Twitter. The woman in Chanel approached Malik. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I'm Catherine Blackwell, attorney. I witnessed this entire interaction. If you need a legal statement for any proceedings, I'm happy to provide one. What happened here was absolutely unacceptable." Other passengers nodded agreement. A businessman added, "I got the whole thing on video. It's disgusting. I'll testify if needed." Malik felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about his personal humiliation anymore. It was about the thousands of other black travelers, Latino families, Muslim passengers, Asian tourists, everyone who'd ever been profiled, questioned, stopped, searched, or denied based on how they looked rather than who they were. "Thank you," Malik said to Catherine and the other witnesses. "I appreciate your willingness to speak up. That matters more than you know." He turned back to Patricia and Jason. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to enter the lounge now, as is my right. Tomorrow, After the board announcement goes public, I'm going to have a very detailed conversation with Ms. Martinez about systematic changes across all Skybridge properties. And within 90 days, every employee in this company will undergo training to ensure this never happens again. Patricia nodded vigorously. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Jason, you're suspended pending investigation. Please report to HR immediately. As Jason walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Malik felt no satisfaction. The security guard had lost his job, but that wasn't the victory. The victory would be making sure no other guard made the same mistake, that no other traveler faced the same humiliation. Malik entered the executive lounge, finally, to a smattering of applause from passengers who'd witnessed his dignity under pressure. But he didn't feel victorious. He felt tired. The bone-deep exhaustion that came from having to prove your worth constantly, from never being given the benefit of doubt that white travelers received automatically. He found a quiet corner, ordered coffee, and opened his laptop. The work was just beginning. 3 months later, Skybridge Aviation announced the most comprehensive anti-discrimination program in the aviation industry. The blind check protocol became standard across all their properties. Security personnel were required to verify credentials without making assumptions based on appearance. Every denied access was reviewed by management, and profiling of any kind resulted in immediate termination. The video of Malik's encounter had gone viral, with over 15 million views and countless news articles. But more importantly, it sparked a conversation about bias in travel, leading 6 other major airlines to implement similar protocols. Malik used his board position to champion these changes, turning his personal humiliation into systematic reform. Jason Miller, the security guard, completed a comprehensive bias training program and now travels to airports nationwide, sharing his story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of assumptions. And every time Malik enters an executive lounge now, he thinks about the countless travelers who don't have board seats or viral videos to protect them. He thinks about the work still to be done, the systems still to be changed, the assumptions still to be challenged. But he also thinks about the teenagers who recorded that day, the woman who offered legal help, the businessman who kept video evidence, all the people who chose to witness instead of walking away, to speak up instead of staying silent. Change doesn't happen because one person demands it. Change happens when enough people decide that the status quo is unacceptable, that dignity isn't negotiable, and that silence in the face of injustice is its own form of participation. Malik's story became a reminder that sometimes justice requires patience, strategy, and the willingness to turn personal pain into systematic change that protects everyone who comes after.